Welcome to Leading Real Life, the podcast that has the hopes and the dreams of helping you step into your role as leader in the home.
So you did it.
I said it right.
You said it right.
You have no idea, but we actually have done a few takes of that, and I said it wrong every time. And then last time we just decided we were going to go with it, but then I think I screwed up some other ways. So we have to do the rest of this podcast well, because I nailed that tagline. All right.
Good job.
So right off the bat, I want to encourage you that if you enjoy today's podcast, if you find anything in here that is helpful or unique, first of all, share it. Mm-hmm. Share it with somebody that you care about who could use the information, use the encouragement, but also subscribe. Subscribe right away. If it's a podcast you're listening to, subscribe on the podcast format that you have.
Yep.
If it's YouTube, subscribe. Ring the bell so that you know when we're going to put out other episodes, which is going to be weekly.
Yes.
Going to be weekly.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, weekly.
Yes.
And then you can also follow us on our social media networks. Mm-hmm. We've got Instagram, we've got Facebook, we've even got Twitter, which I never go on, but we have it. So,
we have it. I didn't even know we had it.
We do. And a website. We have a website as well. So all of it's under Leading Real Life. You can find it and connect with us that way. We would love to have you there. We'd love to meet you, and we'd love to build relationship with you.
Absolutely. So today, Shannon, what is the topic?
We today are talking about the qualities of a leader. So this was something we were sort of chatting about, it was about a month ago, maybe a couple weeks ago. And so I posed the question on Facebook, just asking people, like, what are the things that you look for in a leader? Like, what are the positive qualities you find in a leader? And what are the things that turn you off? Mm-hmm. Like, what are the negative, bad aspects?
And we got a ton of good responses.
Yeah, we got really good responses and had some good conversation around it.
Yeah, so what we have decided to do is to take those responses. Now, we have done research and we have curated what we believe to be three key traits of a leader. We're not talking necessarily skills. Like, we're not talking, they know how to file well, and they're great administrators, and they're quick to answer phone calls. None of that kind of stuff.
No.
We're talking about traits.
Like personality traits.
Yeah, right? Which we can work on.
Absolutely.
Right?
And we should work on.
And we should work on. But we're also interspersing all the different things that people have said, because we kind of feel like everything that we talked about with our people that joined in on the conversation, that those fall under these three sort of categories.
And there was a lot of there's a lot of similar themes. Mm-hmm. So I think that these sort of encapsulate. That's a hard word. Yeah. All of those things.
Absolutely.
So
I agree.
The first one that we want to talk to you about is having leaders have. Okay, let me say that again. Good leaders have high emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. I just need to point out that we're going to screw up a lot now in this podcast, but I nailed that tag. So whatever happens, Let's rolling.
Remember that.
Right? Just remember that I nailed that tagline. Yes. So if there's a lot of mess ups, it's because we're not stopping. Yes, high emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. So the things that people said in response when you said, what do you look for in a leader? The things that people said, I feel that fall under high emotional intelligence are humility, patience, right?
Yeah.
Kindness.
Yes.
Those are some things. But, we also have to dig into there's more to emotional intelligence than just those things, right? So, what is it? And I love this one line. So, whether you guys know me or not, I'm going to tell you this. I'm a pastor. So, a lot of my reading is spiritual. And there's this one great line, I believe, that comes from a guy named John Calvin. And, I don't agree with everything that he says, but I do like this. He says, in order to know God, one must know oneself.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And what that really means is that, to be in tune with the greatest, God is the greatest to us, right? So the greatest part of, and God lives in us, so the greatest part of life, right? And to be as valuable as you can be, it means you have to know yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And now, I think that people can get sort of hung up on that and be like, well, that's really narcissistic.
Right.
It's like, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Know oneself. Where am I coming up short?
Yes.
That is a question we have to ask ourselves. What are my tendencies? What are my unhealthy go-tos?
Yeah.
And of course, within that, what are my strengths and how do I really play to those?
Yeah.
Right? But I think that emotional intelligence really plays out in our interaction with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. It just shows up in how we speak to other people. Like, okay, so we've all heard people say, you're having a conversation or you're spitballing ideas or whatever. And they're like, oh, yeah, I already thought of that. Like just really dismissive.
It can be like that, sorry. But it can also be like, oh, yeah, I already thought of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Did you know that I already thought of that idea?
Exactly.
Right?
Or just like saying like, oh, you know what? This is just who I am. You're going to have to deal with it.
Oh.
Having a high emotional intelligence recognizes, okay, this is a negative quality that I have that I need to work on. Not just saying, this is who I am, deal with it.
No.
Like, we all need to recognize that there are things within ourselves that we need to change and work on and improve.
Oh, 100%.
And so understanding that is super important.
I think that comment specifically shows, and like when you say that, you might as well just be saying, I understand that this is a problem, but I'm not willing to do the work it takes.
Exactly.
You are going to have to adjust yourself to deal with who I am.
Exactly. It's kind of like, you hear it a lot from people who are really like blunt, right? Or rude. And like, well, I just say it like it is,
Oh,
and it's
my
like,
goodness.
well, okay, but do you remember that your mother told you if you don't have anything nice to say it, don't say it? Like, you don't have to actually.
Good advice.
It is good
Right?
advice. And
Yeah.
it's like one of those things that you hear all the time, so it just like goes away. But it's true.
Yes.
Just because you think something doesn't mean you need to say it.
No, absolutely. I've had people tell me, you know what, I'm just a bull in a china shop.
Yeah. So don't. That's not
but
good.
that's not good.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not a good thing. You shouldn't be
like,
praising yourself for it.
What do bulls accomplish in china
they destroy
shops?
things. They break stuff.
Destruction.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And another sort of comment there, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
That obviously comes out in different ways.
Yes.
It's like people will say, yeah, I get, but I'm the boss here.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And you'll find that in sort of toxic work environments that are just like, yeah, well, just that's how it's going to be. So,
yeah, exactly.
Like never willing to look at another way of doing things.
That's right.
And,
Yeah. So another part of that you will see in somebody who's emotionally unintelligent is the blame game.
Right. Yeah.
Has it ever played out in your life? I think it's.
Oh, I'm sure it has.
Yeah, I think I've even probably been guilty of it.
I think everybody is. Nobody really wants to take the blame for something.
Right.
And I think, like, I try really hard not to do that, but sometimes it's like, dang, I don't want them to know that was my fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And the hardest part with that is as the leader.
Yeah.
Right? When you are leading, you have to own it all.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you're saying, well, the reason that we didn't succeed here is because of my team.
Yes. And you know what? Like, we've seen that with so many leaders who have failed or been canceled or whatever. Like, often I think about this one author who she was called out for some just like really annoying behavior basically on TikTok, right?
Okay.
And everyone's like, listen, you need to hear us and you need to hear what we're saying. And so she sort of like, oh, yeah, well, my team, blah, blah, blah. Like, she really tried to pass the buck.
Oh, no.
And everyone's like, that's not good. Like, nobody respects that.
Yeah, but who runs your team? You know where else I saw that? And I don't know, this is bad. Maybe I'm throwing shade here and I shouldn't. But, like, I kind of saw that with Ellen DeGeneres and that whole situation.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't have, like, a thing against Ellen DeGeneres, but I do remember that in that conversation, it was like,
sort of like, I didn't know
it's my higher ups are doing this. I didn't know.
You're the lead.
Like,
you need to take responsibility. If there's bad behavior underneath you, then you need to go, okay, I've been missing something.
Yeah. I think like she's probably owned up to all that. Actually stopped following that. Now I feel bad for even like throwing the shade. So sorry, Ellen.
But like, it's one of those
If you listen to my
things-
podcast, Ellen, I'm sorry.
It's one of those things, like, we could honestly give so many examples.
Because I've done it. I know I've done it.
Yeah, I think everyone's guilty of it at some point or another, but I think once we start to grow up, we realize, okay, you can't do that because nobody respects that.
But even then, and I love that you said when we grow up, even then, it's a constant battle for all of us.
Of course.
Right? Like, we love to just say, well, you need to get that emotional intelligence where you take the blame.
Yeah.
It's like, but it is hard.
Oh, it's really hard.
Right?
Very hard.
Especially
if, like, and let's be honest, sometimes it might not be your fault, right? Like, if you're the leader and it's like you actually had nothing to do with that situation.
That's right.
It's hard to be like, oh, I guess I dropped the ball in that I wasn't, looking over that situation. But in the same breath, you didn't want to micromanage, so you're trying to let people lead their team, right?
Man.
Like, so it's not
So
like
we're going to go down that path in a bit.
Yeah.
And that all plays together and like...
Yeah, but it's hard.
Yeah.
So...
Absolutely. So another area that I think that if you notice amongst leadership gossip...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Then that is a sign, honestly, of low emotional intelligence. And when it gets like gossip... Something that we're okay with, honestly, in the world. The world is okay with gossip.
Yeah, the world loves gossip. Are you kidding?
That's a place to run.
Yeah.
Because a person who's gossiping about somebody else is gossiping about you.
Well, it's hard because gossip is one of those things, and like there's a reason it's so prevalent. It pulls you in. Because if you're like, oh, yeah, I can contribute to this conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I know something that you don't know. And it's sort of like it gives you a connection with somebody, although it's probably a false connection. It feels like a connection, right? So it's really easy to want to gossip.
Yeah.
And but it turns out it's not a good thing. It really can hurt people.
Turns out gossip. Did you got this just in? So it turns out gossip is not a good thing. And right. So, but it's a very fine line too. That I think that sometimes we need to talk about issues. But we can hide and mask issues. We could talk. We could be talking smack and be like, well, I actually kind of need to talk about this because it's a leadership issue.
Right.
And it's like, but you're actually gossiping.
Yeah. I think the key, well, I haven't figured this out yet, but what I try to do is like, you're going to have your core person, right? So like you and I are going to talk about things.
Yeah, of course.
And we're going to talk about things that have upset us or issues that we've had with other people. That I would not call that gossip, right? No. However, if a friend of mine shares something confidence with me, and then I tell you, and you really have no business knowing, that would be gossip.
Well, so me and you have secrets from each other.
Well, yeah.
Because they're other people's secrets.
Exactly.
And they're not my story to tell you.
Exactly.
Right?
So,
and we respect that in each other. And you don't expect that I come home and tell you everything that I deal with.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think it's okay to have your friend that you vent to or whatever. But if you're like, spreading stuff about everyone to whoever will listen, that's a problem.
Yeah. So language, how we speak to other people, like, specifically, like how you hear someone speak will show a lot about their emotional intelligence. You'll hear phrases that are trying to be, self, like, what's the word? I got propelling in my head, and that's not it.
I don't know.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
You all know what I mean. Trying to prop myself up.
Yeah.
All right. But then also words that keep me away from holding responsibility. And then words like, why do we gossip? We're tearing people down to lift ourselves up.
Exactly.
So it's really trying to put ourselves on a pedestal that, we as leaders are not supposed to be on.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that is not the goal.
No.
As a leader, it is not to be on a pedestal.
I couldn't imagine if it was like Bob Iger's out there just like talking smack about all his employees. Like that would never happen.
Yeah.
And so if you have a leader that's doing that, run the other way.
Self-promotion. Okay.
That's the
word. But then there's also actions.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can see it in people's actions. Are they caring for other people's feelings?
Yeah.
Right? That's a sign of, if they are caring, that's a sign of high emotional intelligence.
Absolutely, because they recognize that somebody's going through something.
Yeah. Can they cope when strong emotions are out, right? Like, we have a ton of divisive issues, and the really good leaders, I'm just saying it.
Yeah.
The really good leaders are not dividing more.
Yes, exactly. They're de-escalating the situation.
Absolutely. But they're not just doing that. They are still captaining their ships where those ships need to go. They are still considering all people, not just one person or one point of view or even what they want.
Yeah, it's really true.
They're loving well. And so they are handling it without getting super emotional about it, right? Yeah. And then they don't make things all about themselves.
Yeah.
Like there are leaders that I know do that. I heard of one leader who was a leader of a church who said, I cannot wait until I am pastoring famous people.
Yeah. Like, what? That's your end goal? You need to go back to the beginning and figure out why you're in ministry or why you're leading. You know what I mean? Like,
I am twitching. I am twitching. Right now, that just makes me cringe.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is making it about you.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like how are my finances? How is my whatever? Anyways, so that's the first quality and trait of a good leader is high emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
The second quality, what is that, Shen?
It is a leader who can cast vision.
Yes.
But release creativity.
Woo!
Right? So, like, you have a leader who is a really good... Okay, I'm literally about to repeat exactly what I just said, but you're going to cast the vision, right? But then you're going to implement your team to do the things.
Right.
So you're not going to micromanage them.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to say, okay, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this.
Yep.
Now go do it.
Yes. And so these are the things that came out from the people on the internet.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You guys said things like doesn't micromanage.
Yes.
Listens to ideas. Is collaborative.
Yeah.
Recognizes giftings and
Yes.
strengths.
Yes.
So those are all huge. Those are really, really good. And those are really, really good explanations.
Yeah.
Now, what the keys to casting vision and releasing creativity are, like if you're going to cast vision, right? That's a different thing than releasing creativity.
Right.
Right? You have to cast vision.
Yes.
And then you could either release it to creativity or you could hold it, right? So
Yeah.
you could have vision and then after that it all goes south.
Yeah.
So the part of the casting the vision, you have to have good communication.
Absolutely. Like you need a clear plan. You need to know what, like I think about like say the director of a movie, right? They have a vision for the whole movie and they know, okay, we're going to need to do all of these things to get this end result.
Yes.
And so they know where to organize and who needs to do what and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So they clearly communicate with their team members.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to figure out this.
Yeah.
And you are going to be in control of this.
Yes.
But they have clearly communicated the details.
Sure. I think even the big picture though.
Right.
Right? Like, so we're making this movie.
Yeah.
Right? So that
Yeah.
everybody knows like, okay, that's the end goal. And then yes, everybody needs to know their place, which goes really well into the next idea within this is that the leader needs to first recognize the giftings and strengths in others. Now, this was
Yes.
something that was mentioned by somebody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
So important.
That is so important because if you are going to go from the vision to the creativity and allow people to be as creative as they possibly can be,
Yeah.
you need to have people in their right spots.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, if I have a doctor and I'm like, okay, doctor, I need you to play Mozart.
Yeah. That's not going to work.
Well, they might not play Mozart, but for the most part,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, that is not their purpose or their skill set or even what they're passionate about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay,
Right.
so if we go back to the movie example, you don't have your person that is in charge of audio doing the special effects.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're not and there's a good chance they know a little bit about that, but that's not their key skill.
That's right.
That's not their strength.
Right.
So you need to always recognize that in your team because a good leader knows their team
Absolutely.
and knows them well.
So that might come up in the hiring process.
Yeah.
Like, don't hire people for their personality.
yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you might like somebody's personality, but you don't hire them for their personality. You hire them for their skill set, their work ethic.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And yeah, their personality might come into play a little bit, but like sometimes you need a type 8.
Yeah.
Right. When you maybe work better with a type 3, whatever the case, right? Like, so recognizing those gifts and the potential and the strength of people, also knowing their weaknesses.
Yes. Yeah.
So that you don't
Set them up for failure.
Well, yeah. I mean, that is just so key. And it takes work on the leader's part ahead of time.
I have an example of that, actually.
Nice.
Okay, so I remember in one workplace that I had, this woman was hired for sales. They didn't train her.
Okay.
Right? So it almost felt like they hired her for her to fail so they could fire her. And like she was never given the keys to succeed at all.
That's so
She
weird.
did her best.
Yeah.
And she was a wonderful person. And had she been given the proper tools, I think she would have thrived.
Yeah.
But the team lead, for whatever reason, chose to not train them.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so then she got fired. Well, why did she get fired? Because you didn't lead her.
Yeah, right.
You didn't direct her
Yeah.
and explain what the job was.
Yeah. And so that's, I mean, so you notice gifts, you notice strengths, and you notice weaknesses, but then you also have to give them the tools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And then another key to all of that, and this is hard for leaders, I think, is to be okay with failure.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Because just that very word means to a lot of leaders, like, you failed at your job.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that you were called to do, which was lead, you could not do. Right? But we do need to get ourselves to a better place where we can be okay with failure. And I mean, you can't be okay with failure over and over and over and over again.
Well, I think what it means is you're okay taking risks.
Yes.
Right? Because if you don't take risks, you're never going to get to the place where you want to get to.
Yeah.
You know what? You can stay at this mediocre level. You're never going to rise above if you don't take risks.
No.
So, like, I think of, it's always going to come back to Bob Iger for me because he's, like, my favorite leader.
Not Bob Chapek?
No.
Oh, okay. Bob Iger. I love Bob Iger.
Absolutely not.
Big. Whoa.
I hope
easy.
he begins to do well. Okay. Enough of that. I could go off on that. But Bob Iger, okay, he is probably one of the best CEOs out there.
Yeah.
Or was. He's retired now.
I will agree with that.
I remember listening to him talk about the risks that he chose to take as the
yeah.
CEO of
In his
Disney.
book, right?
Yeah, of the Walt Disney Company. And so he decided, you know what? We're going to make Black Panther and we're going to make Captain Marvel.
Right.
And everybody said, you can't make a movie with a black lead character. People won't come. You cannot make a movie with a woman lead superhero.
No,
People
I know.
won't come.
Yep.
So it was a risk. He's like, you know what? I don't really care what you think. We're going to do it anyways.
Absolutely, right? He did
And
do that.
look at what a success those movies were.
I know.
They were huge.
Yes, because there was a demand for them.
Exactly. He chose to take the risk, and it had a huge reward.
Yeah.
Now he also took other risks that weren't the best. I don't know what they were. And
No, because everything he did was like gold.
But isn't that important? Like, we don't know what those risks were that didn't work. We don't know necessarily. Like, maybe we know some failures, but they're not necessarily the things that stick out to us.
No. I think where everything thrived in that was on the level of the Imagineers.
Yeah.
Right? And on Pixar.
Yeah.
Right?
He let his team do what they do
Yeah.
best.
He hired the creative people or his people. He hired the people to hire the people.
Yeah.
Whatever, but they released.
Exactly.
Right? And it's like, we are going to make a show about an old guy who in a house takes a balloon or was that before Disney? I don't know. Either way, right? Like all of these crazy ideas and stories that they have. And then, yes, they did black characters, women lead characters, and success.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
Such a good example.
Absolutely. Agreed. So, look, as a leader, it can be super hard to cast vision and then release.
Yeah.
Because honestly, one of the things that we feel about what we're in charge of is often our baby. right?
Yeah.
Like I've written a children's book and that's my baby, but I do have to release that on some level. I had to release it to an artist. I had to release it to a focus group. I had to release it to you on certain levels. I had to release it to editors. And those things are scary, but those people make things better.
Exactly. Well, and like one of the other comments we might have touched on already is they love leaders who are collaborative, right? So who will listen to them when they bring them ideas and recognize that like we're better as a team.
Yeah, we are better
work better
as a team.
together.
Yeah.
So
it brings in dynamics.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
People have different viewpoints of different situations, how to come through certain, how to get to certain outcomes, even end vision, right? Like, here's the thing as a leader. How often have you started out on a journey towards something and you sort of ended up there?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't actually, in the end, look exactly how you imagined.
Yeah.
So that vision that you're casting, while it's super important, it is going to change and it should change.
Yes.
Because you actually will limit it.
Yeah.
Often.
Because you can't do everything perfectly.
No. And you don't have the full scope. You bring more people in that.
And that actually goes back to having high emotional intelligence, recognizing that you aren't the best at all the things, right? And going, you know what, I'm good at this, but this team member is really good at this.
Yes.
So
and releasing
they're gonna
that
do this
for
and releasing
sure.
that to
That
them.
is a high
Like,
emotional intelligence.
Yeah, like you need to be well aware of yourself and what your strengths and weaknesses are in order to allow other people to work with you.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Well, let's get in. So we did, number 1 was high emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Number 2 was you can cast vision and also release to be creative. And the third quality of a leader is that they care for people.
Yes. And I feel like that's really important.
Oh, I think it's
like one of the most important.
I would want to put it on the, it's one of those things where I want to put it as the most important, but like a leader without vision, that doesn't
true.
work.
Yeah, and you can be the most caring person but have no vision at all. So.
You can be the most caring person, have no emotional intelligence whatsoever. Like I just go around giving people hugs.
Yeah, exactly. They're all super important.
But it is vital. Like it's something it's something that you can't not have.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like, you have to have care for people.
Yes, you do.
Right.
Because
it's up there with the other ones.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's on par.
Because leaders who don't care for people can't keep people.
Yeah.
Right? You have high turnover rates and
Yeah. So what did our people say that go along with this?
Okay, so they said they love a leader who builds them up and gives praise when praise is due. A lot
of what people said already falls.
Yeah.
Under this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, even just the factors that we put under high emotional intelligence can also fall here, right? Like humility, patience, kindness. All of those things show care for people.
Yeah, for sure they do.
So,
So some signs of this. Does your boss call you greaseball when your name's actually Griswold? That was a toss to something. I hope that you get. If you caught that.
Yeah, please let us know what reference
know.
that's from.
Have they called you greaseball? Your name's actually Griswold. But that kind of a thing. No, like seriously.
Yeah, honestly, you know what annoys me so much? When I have introduced myself to a leader numerous times.
Goodness.
And it's like, you still don't know who I am? That shows that you do not care to know who I am.
No, exactly.
I shouldn't have to introduce myself over and over and over and over.
No, there
and
are
over
obvious signs that a leader cares or doesn't care.
Yes.
And that is absolutely one of them. But are they approachable?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, there's those leaders out there who you're like, you wouldn't dare go up to
I've
them.
worked for them.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
No.
It's horrible.
They're on the throne and you're their little minion.
Yeah.
And you're really fighting to just either go home and have time off or get out of there and into the next thing.
And sorry.
If we look at how the world is moving and we look at like millennials and into what's that next generation?
Gen Z.
Yeah. Like they want work that is meaningful, inspires them, and makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I fall in there because
I'm Gen X. I actually prefer to call myself Xennial.
Actually, I think you are still millennial, aren't you?
No, you are like the borderline of you're the cusp.
We're Xennials, either way.
We're Xennials or Zennials?
I don't know.
Anyways, yeah. We're somewhere in between there, but I do fall in there as well.
Yeah. I have struggled with this. And I mean, I think it hits the Gen X generation too. Like we have the boomers who just did their job.
I know, they were just grateful to have work or something.
Yeah, it's just like you work, you come home, you go back to work.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you like it, you just do it, right?
And then there's a number of Gen Xers who sort of fall in there.
Yeah, but I think our generation really wants to have meaning, and then like it gets even more so, into the next generation.
Absolutely.
So, because like I will work when I recognize that I need to work,
and then
even though I don't like the job, I've had a lot of jobs that I don't care about.
Yep.
But I did it because we needed to. But then you have a generation that's like, I'm not going to work if I don't find purpose in it.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, you're going to live in your parents' basement forever.
And some of them are okay with that.
Yeah, well, whatever. More power to you.
More power to you.
Sorry, we got off track.
Yeah, but that's okay. This podcast is very much about getting off track. Just kidding. But that is life as a parent. I'm sorry.
Yes.
But so are they approachable? Is a leader approachable? Because we're talking about their care for people.
Yeah.
Do they have time for people?
Yeah.
Like, do you see them making time for people? And okay, I want you to be really careful in this. Don't look at your boss and go, do you have time for me? When I say this, like, look at them and are they making time for other people?
Yeah.
And you are going to come up in this. Like, you are.
Yes.
But don't be all about, like, well, me.
Yeah.
Because as a leader, there are people who are so stinking needy.
Yeah.
That it's almost like it incapacitates me.
Yeah, and to be honest, if you're always giving all your attention to the neediest people, you never have the opportunity to give attention to other people that need it, that aren't
exactly
going to step out there and ask for it. You know what I mean?
The place I see you do that is you see somebody approach them.
Yeah.
How's their reaction to that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, are they running?
Yeah.
Or if they're at something important, are they the first one to leave?
Yeah.
Right?
Are they annoyed if you're like, can I just, bug you for a minute?
I'll give a really great example, and you know this example because I think you're the one who noticed it first, was in our church, our lead pastor, Pastor Peter, he mopped the floor.
Yes. We had...
After an event.
It was an event, and everybody else was gone, and he's out there mopping
the floor.
That's amazing, and it's stuck with me for a very long time.
And that's care for people.
Or watching leaders stack chairs. Like, you're never too good to do things that help other people.
Exactly. So look for those things.
Yeah.
Like, don't go on a mission and be like, I'm going to attack my boss or whoever with all these needs and see how he responds to them. That's not what I mean.
Have high emotional intelligence when you are going to them, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, because the truth is nobody's going to respond perfectly 100% of the time, right?
No.
There might be a time when your boss or your pastor or whoever blows you off.
Or has a migraine.
Right, but like understand that if this is not their regular behavior, give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
Because everybody has a bad day, or maybe they just have to get to something, right?
Exactly.
Like maybe they have a deadline, or they have a meeting, or they have something important that they need to be at.
Yeah.
So recognize that, okay, if they didn't give you the time then, maybe there was a reason. Like, go to them again another time when you know that they can see you. And
but if you're a leader, do it as though people are watching you.
Yes.
Remember that people are watching how you respond. And responding in love, responding with care, open arms kind of approach is it's like putting money in the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, that just is like...
Well, and just... Yeah, people are watching you, whether you like it or not. As soon as you're a leader, people are watching you, and they're watching how you respond.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Yeah. So, and the other part, I think, just sort of wrapping up the care for people is does your boss reach out to you in difficult times?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That goes a long
or
way.
big life events like
Yeah.
our leaders, like, yeah, they're always, sending a gift, popping by at an important, like buying a house, just stopping in with a gift to see the place.
Yeah.
That care
Exactly.
goes a long way, and it
Yeah.
is a necessary trait. If you want to have a team that catches onto your vision and is willing to be creative for you
Yeah.
or willing to go that extra mile for you, that care is so, so vital.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So what were those 3 key points?
All right.
The key traits that and thank you guys so much for those who gave us their insight, because we
Yeah,
pretty much
it really
used
helped.
everybody's insight
Yeah, so helpful.
on some level in
Yeah,
this. There's a lot of overlap there,
Yeah.
but we definitely used it.
Yeah. So the 3 qualities that we're discussing are 1, high emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
2, casts vision but releases creativity.
Yes.
And 3, cares for people.
3, cares for people. Awesome. So just to kind of close things off, what are some red flags? Right?
I
Because I think that it's good to just really, like, if I see these kind of things, maybe I need to
Yeah.
turn and run.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, in some ways we sort of touched on them a little bit, but a leader who is just all about themselves,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like, what are you doing for me?
Yeah.
And
Do you know who I am? This is what I've
yeah,
done.
this is why I'm important.
Yeah.
Like, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
And you will address me by this name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People who are huge on titles.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, gosh.
for sure. I'd say that also when they care more about outcomes
Yes.
than people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People are always more important.
Yeah, exactly.
Always. I'm sorry if Bob Iger or Bob Chapek thinks that Disney is more important than their people.
Yeah.
It's not true.
No.
Disney is not more important than those people.
Exactly.
So that's a huge red flag if they care more about the outcome than they do about relationship.
Yeah, and then, like, as people in ministry, it's pretty easy to spot these things in churches.
Yes.
And so, like, you need to watch. I feel like in ministry, it is really easy to forget that the people, like, you need to care more about the people than, what the Sunday morning service looks like.
Yeah, or the numbers.
Right? And
Yeah.
so you hear stories about people who have been mistreated by leaders in churches because maybe they didn't have the right look.
Yeah.
Or they didn't, I don't know, like.
There's a lot of things that, yes, there's been mistreatment for
Yeah.
sure.
So.
And that's caring about the outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're just like, oh, this is important, so I'm going to hurt your feelings. Sorry. You're going to have to deal
So
with it.
an example of that for me would be as if somebody did come to me with need and their need was difficult and the person maybe had a messy life.
Right.
And I made it more important to go to a leadership meeting.
Yeah.
Than to
Right.
to be with that person,
Yeah.
right? Like that kind of thing is problematic.
Yeah.
And that means I'm more worried about the look and the outcome of my work than I am about caring for people.
Yeah, exactly. Another red flag is they're emotionally unstable.
What?
Yeah, right.
Never emotionally unstable.
Oh, I remember one place that I worked, like going to the one boss if you made a mistake was terrifying.
Oh yeah? Where was that, Shan?
I'm not going to say where that was, but it was
Can you tell me after?
Sure.
Okay.
It was terrifying. I was like, it didn't matter if it was a little or big mistake. I was just like, oh my gosh. I have to come to them and admit that I did something wrong. And it's like, you should never be that volatile that your
Yeah.
people are scared to tell you they made
Yep.
a mistake.
Yep.
Right? Because then what happens? They cover things up. They don't admit that something happened, and then the problem escalates, and it's a way bigger problem. So that goes back to being approachable, right? An emotionally unstable person is not approachable.
Oh, if they're quick to anger,
Yeah.
if they're just like over the top all the time, even if they're overly excited about everything,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
just like,
Like there's no like what's the word I'm looking for? Like
even keel. Yeah.
They're just like up and down.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you don't know what mood you're going to get that day.
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah. How do they handle stress?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Also, if they lie or embellish.
Right.
And actually, I think the embellish one, I mean, lie is obvious.
Yeah.
But the embellish one
Yeah.
is a sign of emotional unintelligence.
It's true.
Because it's a pride issue, right? And okay, and we saw this on the mission field, right?
For sure.
Like a lot of people will embellish a number or say this many people, you know, were at this event or
Yeah.
this many people gave their lives to Jesus, and it's like,
I was there. That's not true.
what? But what is the purpose?
Yeah.
It's to make something look better than it actually is.
Yeah.
And it's a part of that is because you don't believe either. For a Christian, it'd be like, maybe I don't believe that God could do it. But it's also belief in oneself, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, no, if I say anything less than what I think people want to hear, it's all going to go away.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, though? Like, if you are someone who embellishes constantly, like, everybody sees through that.
Yeah. It's true.
Right, you're not fooling anybody. All you've done is create a reputation for yourself to be like, yeah. I mean, you really can't trust the thing that person says
Yeah.
because you never know if they're lying or just like exaggerating everything. And it's like it does not take long for people to recognize that about you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just don't.
Just don't do it. Don't do it. The final red flag, and this is probably the biggest
yeah, no accountability.
one, right?
If they have nobody to answer to, run.
Run.
There should always be somebody to answer to.
Always. Even Bob Iger
Yeah.
and Bob Chapek
Oh yeah, they have a
have
board.
to answer to the board.
Like,
Their
there's-
board might be crazy, but I mean,
No, I mean the best leaders always have someone to be accountable to, and they have mentors. Even if they're already a really successful leader,
Absolutely.
they still have those people that they go to to get advice from.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a leader who is just like acts like they know everything and they've reached the epitome of, you know, whatever it is.
yeah.
They don't.
No.
They have no idea. And clearly they are so far from reality that they can't lead well.
No. No, exactly.
And again, if we go back to churches, when you have pastors who have no accountability, and like there was a really big podcast recently called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, and it was about this specific pastor who he did not have it. He was not accountable to anybody.
No.
And there was people that kept saying like, listen, you need to be accountable to someone.
Yeah.
He refused. And then what happened?
Yeah.
The church collapsed.
Yeah. And that's like we talked about earlier. It's my way or the highway.
Exactly.
And
It's pride.
the buck stops here.
Yeah.
Kind of mentality. All no go.
Yeah.
Like if you are in a church, especially where the final accountability is the lead pastor,
Yeah.
run.
Yeah. There should be a board.
Yeah.
There should be a system in place
Yeah.
that they have to answer if
Yep.
they screw up. Because guess what? Pastors screw up sometimes.
Yeah. So there's a ton of stuff that we didn't talk about.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, we only have so
So many
much
things.
time. But again, thank you to all those people who really fed into
Yeah.
our questions, helped us with our direction and what we wanted to talk about
Yeah.
with this. But in our experience, right?
Yeah.
These 3 keys to leadership are huge,
Yeah.
and those red flags equally as important.
Yeah. So we actually we'd love to connect with you guys and hear from you. So if you're on YouTube, let us know in the comments what have been some of your experiences, good or bad, with leaders or as a leader. Actually, it would be really great to hear from leaders
Oh, I'd
as
love
well.
that. Yeah.
Or you can email us. You find us anywhere, really. It's a conversation that I think is worth having.
Yeah.
So if you can connect with us in some way.
Connect with us. We want to hear from all of you in all the various forms. Always in everything. Be kind.
Also, so you may be going, okay, but you were only talking about leadership today. You weren't talking about parenting or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there's a reason. We want to talk about these specific leadership qualities and how we apply them to parenting and marriage and family in our next podcast. So if you come back next week, we will be talking about how do we implement these things into our
And I think that the reason we do
parenting.
that, well, I know the reason we do that is because we have a tendency as parents to think of that type of leadership as completely different. And while it is different, you know, there's a love we have for our kids that is different than we'll have for employees.
Absolutely.
But a lot of those intrinsic aspects and qualities that we talk about in regular leadership are going to be apparent in our parenting.
Yeah. I mean, just like real quick, if you are a parent, you do need to have high emotional intelligence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you do need to be able to cast vision over your family.
Absolutely.
And you also do need to care for them.
And show them how to actually care for other people.
Exactly. So we'll dive way deeper into
We
that
don't need
next
to.
week.
We just did it. That was it.
I said deeper.
Oh, deeper.
We'll dive
Yeah,
deeper.
yeah. Sounds good. So that is today's episode. Thank you so much. Again, share, like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Leading Real Life. She loves you. I like you a lot.
Have a really good week.
Ciao.
Bye.